I'm Simon Wrigley. I'm a senior solutions engineer at CARTO. So I've got a deep background in geospatial. My day job is basically helping companies around the world use geospatial data more effectively. So we're here today to do an introduction to CARTO for those of you who have not seen the platform before. We'll go through a few slides to begin with and then dive into the platform itself to do a walkthrough. So CARTO is founded on the premise that a vast amount of data now has a location component, but a huge amount of that is underutilized, and there's massive business potential by being able to analyze that in more detail and at greater scale. So the use cases we see are enormous and varied. So it could be anything from optimizing 5G antenna and network deployments across a country, estimating flood risk to properties caused by natural disasters is unfortunately becoming a much more common and frequent use case. We see a lot of data now around telemetry, so tracking drivers and vehicles, analyzing driving patterns, and using this for insurance purposes, as well as company fleet management, through to discovering untapped business opportunities in different markets, mitigating risk, and optimizing how stores, centers, and logistics partners all work together. So when we talk to companies, we've come across quite a few common challenges, and this spans industry verticals when it comes to geospatial data. We come across lots of technical limitations. So with existing solutions, a lot of them suffer from limited integration. So there's been a huge move to the cloud, but a lot of geospatial solutions are not keeping up with that and taking full advantage of it. There's often problems around scalability. A lot of legacy geospatial systems are desktop-based, or they're based on non-scalable compute. So when the data sets start to grow in size, these solutions struggle with being able to analyze them. Having siloed geospatial capabilities from a technical point of view often also leads to lower business impact, because siloed technology often leads to siloed teams, which makes it harder to integrate your geospatial analysis with the rest of business decision making. We also see, especially from larger enterprises, difficulties around data governance and keeping everything kind of managed and locked down across systems. So all of this together informs how and why we built CARTO. So we find that when GIS is siloed, businesses can fall behind, whereas if we can integrate geospatial data much more closely into a modern data stack, it becomes much more intertwined and interused with BI tools, some of the AI and ML developments, and leads to better decision making overall. So one of the main aims of CARTO is to break the GIS data silo and integrate geospatial much more closely with a modern data stack. So we're used by a huge variety of different companies around the world from all sorts of industry verticals, and we are premier development partners with all of the major cloud hyperscalers. So CARTO is available across all of these different platforms. So what does CARTO offer? We are built to work on top of any of the main data warehouses on the market. So we utilize the data warehouses for all data storage and compute, and then we massively extend their geospatial capabilities with our platform. So this means that CARTO is highly interoperable. All of your data never leaves the data warehouse. We use it and analyze it in place. And many other tools can do the same thing. So your data warehouse becomes a central source of truth for not only all your business data, but now all of your geospatial data as well. This gives you access to limitless scale and speed. All of these different solutions offer massive scalability when it comes to compute. So if you're only needing a small amount, it's fine. But if you want to scale up to tackle big problems, they automatically scale to meet that demand. And on top of this, we've built a really easy to use collaborative platform, which is highly user friendly, to be able to take advantage of all of this technology. The platform itself is available in all of the leading cloud marketplaces. We utilize native spatial SQL capabilities for the power of the analytics that delivers, but we also have some really powerful no-code solutions. So you don't need to be an expert in coding to be able to use the platform. For the security conscious use cases, when it comes to kind of financial services and insurance, we offer a fully self-hosted deployment. So you can install CARTO on your own cloud environment. And then with all of these platforms, we have native ML and AI integrations, which is becoming more and more relevant and important. So the CARTO platform we're going to dive into in a second, but it gives you capabilities to manage all of your spatial data that's in the cloud. You can generate rich previews and catalog your data. We then have a whole suite of tools to analyze and process your geospatial data, bringing rich functionality to each data warehouse. You can then visualize your data at massive scale and build completely interactive experiences to tell the stories to your kind of end users. We're then investing heavily in AI and machine learning, which we'll go into. And then we finally have a complete developer toolkit. So if you want to build your own bespoke geospatial applications on top of CARTO, you can use that to do so. So with that, we'll jump into the platform and take a look at an example use case to kind of bring it to life. So when it comes to geospatial, site selection or site optimization is a really common use case across many different industries. So we're going to focus on a site selection use case here, just to kind of illustrate some of the key capabilities of CARTO. So here we're viewing a CARTO dashboard. So you'll see they're completely interactive. Here you can use the widgets to filter the data and zoom in and out. And this is the kind of thing that you can share with your end stakeholders. So you can give them a completely dynamic view of the information that you're looking to portray. So here we're looking at the city of Manila. And we've built a site selection index, which combines many different data sets in to help us optimize site selection decisions. So in here, we can filter the index by the score to look at the highest and the lowest potential areas. We can look at scores for a specific city, and we also have different information about various characteristics of the areas. But we'll go into how this was produced so it makes a bit more sense. So this is CARTO Workflows, which is the main area for analytics in the CARTO platform. So when it comes to using CARTO, you can come in and create a live connection to your data warehouse, whichever that may be. This then means that we install an analytics toolbox, which adds around 120 geospatial functions to your data warehouse to massively extend its capabilities. Once you've connected it, you can then use your connection data directly. So here we can bring in tables directly from our data warehouse. We can use datasets from our Data Observatory, which is a marketplace that's available in the platform, or you can directly import geospatial files here. So this is the workflow that was used to build up the site selection index. So if we look at some of the constituent parts and datasets that went into it, it'll give a better idea of how the score is working. So if we zoom in, once you drag a source from your data warehouse, so this is a table here of footfall or human mobility data, you can get a data and a map preview for any of these nodes as you go through. So as you build up the workflow, you can see what each step is doing as you move through. And if you're familiar with like Alteryx or FME or Esri Model Builder. It's a very similar concept. So in here, you can bring in your different data sources. You can import data directly from URLs or APIs as well. And then there's a huge range of analytical components, which you can drag and drop and parameterize as we go through. So in here, we're combining human mobility data, competitor density, so the number of retail points of interest. We then have some consumer spending and demographic information, which we're combining, along with a human activity index. And all of this is combined ultimately and then saved as a table back in our data warehouse. So the workflows here, you can see, has a huge variety of different components, all from kind of quite simple things, so like joins and spatial joins, through to advanced integrations with BigQuery or Snowflake or Databricks ML, depending on which data warehouse you're using. So this you can use to build advanced models. You can also create your own extension packages if you want to wrap kind of your internal IP as one of these nodes that your data analysts can then use in repeatable workflows. So these can be used to build up rapidly kind of ad hoc analysis, but they can also be used to productionize your analysis. So these workflows, under the hood, they're completely compiled into spatial SQL that's run on your data warehouse. So you get the ease of use of drag and drop, but then the massive scalability when it comes to compute. And you can also then set them to run on a schedule. So if your data sets, your input data sets are updating on a regular cadence, you can set these processing flows to repeat on the same cadence, so they keep your maps and dashboards up to date. You can also add parameters to any of these components and call them via an API. So if you're building out an application, you can use all of these workflows for kind of your back-end geoprocessing. So once we've combined all of these different data sets into an index, in here we can then use parameters to adjust how we bias each of the inputs. So we can weight each input depending on its importance to our use case. So for example, if we were deciding that we wanted to look at opening a coffee shop, for example, footfall is paramount, so we probably want that weighted very heavily. Consumer spending, maybe not so important as it's a lower ticket item. We want to be near areas of high population, however, but as you can see, once we adjust the weighting, if my internet can keep up, the index can update on the fly to show the relative importance of these different attributes. So here, these can all be tuned to a specific use case. And then once we go back to the widgets on this screen, say we were looking at areas within Manila itself, we can select an area. The statistics down here update to reflect the area we're looking at. And then we could filter down to just the highest potential areas. And then these give us an area to focus on for our kind of retail site selection use case. So if we flip this into edit mode, it'll give you a bit of a better idea of what you can do in CARTO. So here we've got a very plain base map that's good for data visualization. But if we want more context, we could add something like the Google base maps. So you can see in here what the different areas are looking like, what sort of points of interest, why each of these areas are coming up as high priority. In here, you can also add a huge variety of different widgets. So on the right here, there's a few examples, but we can add pie widgets, histograms, time series if we have temporal data. And all of these can be used to interactively filter and drill down into the data on your map. You can also define the pop-ups to have any of the attributes of the data sets that we've loaded in. And again, yeah, wide variety of base maps and legend options. We can also go for more advanced styling if you're looking to present this in a different way. So we can add 3D attributes such as height, which again you can do by a variable on the data set. There are many other functions as well. So maybe you don't want to give the interactive view to a stakeholder, but you've done some analysis and decided that these are your key areas of focus. So then when you're in the publish view, you can give your end users the option to export a PDF report of the data set. So that will give the current map view and then a summary of all the different statistics and widgets that you have on the map. If we go back to the platform itself, there's a couple of other areas to highlight. We have a data observatory. So one of the key things that we identified is discovering and finding geospatial data can be quite difficult, and procuring it can be a lengthy process as well. So we've gathered a data catalog of over 12,000 geospatial data sets. These can all be filtered by geography, by tag category, and by premium or public open source data. And all of these are then available to utilize within the platform with a single click. So it massively reduces your kind of time to value when looking for data sets. We've also recently introduced the concept of AI agents. So when you are designing a dashboard or a map, you can now add an AI agent into the user interface to help your end users navigate and explore the map. So in here, you can think of it a little like prompt engineering. So for this particular map, you can enable an AI agent, and then in the map context, you can give the agent its kind of goal and style of how you want it to respond to your end users. So here, the goal is to help users understand telecommunications data and optimize their network infrastructure. So you can go through, give all sorts of instructions on what the data includes, how it should look at the data. And then you can also include at the end things like do not answer. So you want it to only answer questions that are relevant to the map itself. You can also give a user guide and some conversation starters. And then when you go to the shared view of your map, you then notice this CARTO AI button. So in here, this now gives a AI agent that your users can start to use to explore the map. So what is this map? Might be a good place to start. You can ask questions of it. You can use it to filter data, zoom around, and pan around the map. So this is just the first iteration of where our AI functionality is going. If you are following the CARTO blog, you'll see we've also recently introduced several AI features into workflows. So we have the Google population density foundation model embeddings have been added. So geospatial foundation models are going to be kind of probably a next big frontier in geospatial analytics. And then we've also got several generative AI packages in workflows as well. So these are fantastic if you're wanting to generate kind of text labels for your data sets. You can add labels at scale to help your end users. So when they go on, it can explain why the data set is showing what it is. So all in all, workflows offer you extremely powerful, scalable analytics. And then CARTO Builder has many visualization technologies under the hood as well. So once you've created or analyzed your data, you can then visualize it at massive scale as well, with up to billions of rows in a single data set. At that point, I think it would be good to reserve a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A. So has anyone got any questions? Let me just check. They're in the chat. So we've got quite a few questions coming through. So Dan Reeves has asked, what are the sources of the data sets available in the Data Observatory? So the Data Observatory is, think of it like a data marketplace. So it's data that we have curated. We don't create data ourselves, but we are effectively resellers for many different providers. So if you take something like point of interest data for the UK, for example, we'll have probably 5 or 6 different providers, and those reflect different price points and different kind of levels of attribution of the data. So we have an in-house data team who curates all of this data, and they're always happy to advise and share best practice and best data sets to use for different countries and different use cases. We've got one from Marvin Hans as well. So the data, how often can data sets be refreshed? So it depends completely on the input data source. In the workflows, you can connect via API. You can set that to update every minute if necessary. There's no real restriction on the refresh frequency. It's more often constrained by the input data sets that you're using. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Good question at the end. Do we handle raster data? Yes, we do. So CARTO has recently introduced raster support. So you can import any GeoTIFF raster data, and that gets saved as a table into your data warehouse in an extremely highly indexed format. So it makes it really efficient for querying and extracting values. You can then visualize raster data within Builder, and in workflows, there are also components which you can use to connect directly to Google Earth Engine. So this lets you call Google Earth Engine functions directly from within CARTO Workflows as well. So a lot of customers use Google Earth Engine for their kind of raster processing workflows, and then bring those raster data sets into CARTO to then enrich vector data and perform further analysis. So I think that seems to be the end of the questions.
I mean, I do see a couple
Go ahead.
in the Q&A tab.
Oh, sorry, got the chat open. So Raul, what other sources of data can you overlay? So we support all geospatial data types. So points, lines, polygons. We have native support for spatial indexes. So things like H3, quad bins, and S2, which are really efficient for large data sets. And you can also overlay raster data, as we just mentioned. With the developer toolkit, you can then extend that even further. The other questions, is everything in the Data Observatory included? So the Data Observatory is a mix of premium and open source data. All of the open source data is obviously included free of charge. The premium data sets, the pricing is decided by the individual data providers. So those you can subscribe to on an individual basis, on generally country by country. And then Michael Morales, 3D buildings. Yeah, so you can integrate, the 3D buildings from Google as a base map that's included. You can also introduce Google 3D map tiles through the developer toolkit, if that's of interest. Also, if you have your own building polygon data with height information, you can extrude those based on that data. Great. I think that brings us to the end of the questions. So thanks everyone for your time and attention. Let me just share at the end, we've got one slide here. If you want to go deeper into use cases, there's a lot on the CARTO blog where you can find further information. But if you'd like to chat more in detail about your specific use case, please use this link, or the QR codes will take you to the same page. This will put you in touch with our sales team and our technical teams, and we can go for a deep dive into specific use cases. Hopefully that answers your question, Mohammed. So great. Thank you everyone for joining. It's been a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully it's of interest and you'll be in touch, and we look forward to exploring this with you in more detail.